everyone, welcome to my channel. Welcome to today's video. Today is going to be a ranking video. So this is going to be part 2 of my December ranking updates. Normally I only do these videos about once a month, every other month, just going over products that I've done first impressions on and ranking all of them together, giving some additional thoughts on them now that I've tried them out more than one time. So that's what we'll be doing in today's video. If you like ranking videos, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't yet, stick around. But with all that, I have 9 things in front of me, some subcategories here. Let's just get started with number 9. For number 9, I have these 2 Lisa Eldridge palettes. So I have the Muse palette and I also have the Cinnabar palette. Here is Muse and then here is what Cinnabar looks like. Now this is what I was talking about with just having little subcategories within the ranking. So if I was to rank these palettes within for number 9, Muse would be at the bottom, Cinnabar at top. The Muse palette just did not work for me whatsoever. Unfortunately, this formula did not perform like the other Lisa Eldridge palettes. You're gonna see those coming up here. But this one was like the dud of the group. The shadows did not blend. I got hard pan on some of them. It just didn't perform like the other palettes. I'm not sure if I got a weird one. When I did purchase this and I opened it up, the shadows weren't in the correct order. So I feel like there's just something off with this palette. I'm not too sure. That's why it's gonna be the lowest out of the Lisa Eldridge. But I wanted to keep this Cinnabar palette at number 9 with the Muse, only because this one worked okay. But for $68, I mean, this color story it's just not worth it in my opinion. The other Lisa Eldridge palettes, which we'll get to as we go further up the list here, those are. This one though, with the Muse, I just don't think they're worth the price point. I don't think they're anything spectacular, especially the Muse. So that's why I put them in at number 9. Let's go to the number 8 spot here, and that's going to be another eyeshadow palette. And of course, I will always link any relative videos up above. I did this palette, I tried it out on a full face of first impressions. I will link that video above. And this is okay. It's just not my favorite. And the thing about this is I like the color story. I actually talked about it in that video. I think this is really nice. While boring, it kind of just correlates perfectly to a very simple makeup look. You have a gradient of matte browns here and then a gradient of brown shimmers. I love that. I think this is such a practical palette. The problem that I had with this is I always put the things that I do first impressions on in a bin to the side. So that way I know what I need to try out more for this video. And I just always forgot about this. That's why I'm just ranking it a little bit lower. I don't find it to be a bad palette. It just was almost like out of sight, out of mind. I didn't think that it was a bad palette. I quite enjoyed using this palette. It just wasn't something I thought about to reach for or anything like that. So that's why I'm ranking it a little bit lower. Formula was nice, but that's about it. I don't think it's like a standout palette that you have to have. You do probably have these same shades in another palette. I don't know if this palette's still around. I don't really know what's going on with BH Cosmetics, but it is a nice palette. I would put it in the fine category. It's just not a memorable palette. Number 7 is going to this ColourPop highlighter. So this was in the same video as that BH Cosmetics. And I've tried the Super Shock highlights before. The shade Lunch Money is in my project pan. I'll link that video. This is the shade Smoke and Whistles. So I put this in at number 7 only because I like the Super Shock highlight formula. The thing is though, this shade is really hyped up. This is the shade Smoke and Whistles. Here it is, just a casual swatch on the back of my hand here. I was underwhelmed by this shade. I didn't like it as much. The shade that I currently have is Lunch Money, and I love that shade a lot. It's a lot more of a champagne gold. This is a lot cooler in tone. So the shade was not for me, but the formula was great, which is why I kind of bumped it up a little bit. And it really just fell in between for me. It wasn't bad, it wasn't good. Pros and cons, like the formula, don't like the shade. Wouldn't really recommend it. I'm not sure why people talk about that shade as much. Maybe they just have a cooler skin tone, so it goes better with their complexion. Lunch Money, in my opinion though, is way, way better. Now let's go to number 6. This is the CoverGirl Simply Ageless Anti-Aging Foundation Primer. I like this. I've used this a few times now. It kind of just comes out white. At the end of the day though, this is really just a moisturizing primer, and I've kind of talked about this before. It's not my favorite kind of primer. I really prefer a pore blurring primer, something that I feel like is doing something underneath my makeup. I'm already applying moisturizer on my skincare with SPF. Like, I'm good on moisturizer. I don't need to add another moisturizing primer. If you have extremely dry skin, I could see where that comes in handy. But for me, this is not something that I necessarily want or need. However, I do find it better than the other products I've already spoken about, which is why I put it at number 6. It's a nice moisturizing primer. It's very thick. It's very not greasy on the skin. It soaks in really well. Just not really my preference in makeup style. Spot number 5 is going to go to this Moira brand. So I have these little duos here. I'm going to put them all in at number 5. 2 of them are blush duos, and then I have 1 bronzing duo. So I have Sweet Teas, which is a blush duo. I have Love Recipe, which is also a blush duo. And then I have Tropical Escape, which is the bronzing duo. I probably, out of all of these, like the bronzing duo the most. It's surprisingly nice on the skin, despite what it looks like in the pan. I think that the pan kind of is a little misleading as to how it translates on the cheek there, but it's a very nice color. It's not too cool, it's not too warm, it's that perfect amount of neutral. And then the blushes, I think I liked Love Recipe more than Sweet Teas. Let me see here. So here we have Sweet Teas, here we have Love Recipe. Sweet Teas is just more peach, and then Love Recipe is a little bit more pinky nude. So I gravitate more towards the Love Recipe. I just think that they have a little bit too much shimmer for me. That's the only con. Other than that, really nice formula. They blend really easily. They're pigmented without being too pigmented. All 3 of these, I wouldn't rank them in between this category. I think that they all perform equally as well. Just some of them have a little bit more shimmer than I would personally prefer. I would still wear these though. I love them, and I get actually a good amount of use out of all 3 of these. Number 4 spot is going to go to a concealer. So this is the JCat Staysurance Water Sealed Zero Smudge Concealer, and I have the shade Buff. I tried this. I've had this on my list for a very long time. I remember when this first came out, a lot of people were talking about it as just a high coverage, affordable concealer option, and they were right. I feel like this kind of got lost under the just new release avalanche that comes all the time, so people forgot about this concealer, but this is a really good concealer. It gives great coverage. It is long lasting. It doesn't crease. It does all the claims that it says it's going to do, and I use this a lot. I wouldn't say it's like my top favorite because I don't think it's a versatile concealer. I do think that it's a concealer you have to wear with medium coverage foundations or more. With a light coverage foundation, it's too much for that. And I really want something that gives that full coverage, but that doesn't look weird if you're wearing a skin tint or a light coverage foundation. So it's in my top 5 for sure of concealers. It's just not in like the top 3 or more. If you need an affordable full coverage concealer, this would be the one that I would recommend. In the top 3, so the number 3 spot is going to go to these palettes. I will link all the videos above on these palettes. I did a video for each of them. Now, these are the palettes from Gloss Gods. So I have Smoke and Mirrors, which released for Black Friday. I have Vintage Glam, which is more the purpley one. I should probably show them off, huh? So here's Vintage Glam. Here is New Neutrals, which is very pretty, just a neutral everyday color story. And then Smoke and Mirrors, which is a beautiful cool tone color story. Now, if I was to rank within these, I probably would put New Neutrals at the bottom, Vintage Glam at the middle, and then Smoke and Mirrors at the top. But really, I thought they were close enough that all 3 could be in the number 3 spot. These are really nice palettes. I like them a lot. If you watch those videos, my only con is the fallout, and that's a me thing. I've talked about this before, just you have to do these eyeshadows before you apply your base or it's gonna be way, way too messy. You also need a glitter glue. Now, I did finally purchase a glitter glue and use these. The fallout is so much less, so I am happy to report that I kind of solved that problem. If you're not using these palettes in a very specific way, it's just gonna be so messy. You're gonna have glitter over your entire face. That's how it was for me the first time I tried these. Now that I know how you need to use them, they're so much better. I really love these palettes. They just have such great staple colors and then those really just unique shimmers that shift. They're not, I wouldn't call them exactly multi-chrome and not a duochrome, somewhere in between there, but they're perfect. And I love this new neutral one, even though I ranked it number 3 out of all 3 of them. These mattes in here, I use this one and this one all the time. They're just the perfect 2 browns for me. I think that these are great palettes. You just have to use a glitter glue. You have to. And you have to do it before your foundation. If not, trust me, it'll be a disaster. If you haven't tried anything from Gloss Gods, really give them a chance. I'm so happy that I decided to branch out and try this indie brand. Number 2 spot is probably the most thing that I was surprised I liked so much. Well, I am surprised, but I'm not surprised. So number 2 is gonna go to the Beauty Bakery Flour Powder. This has been talked about so much. The people who I see talking about it love this powder. I just haven't had a chance to try it. I finally did. I have like a little sample here, but I did actually purchase a full size of this. I liked it that much. This is a great powder. I can see why people who talk about it. I just wish I saw more people talking about it because it's fantastic. It sets your makeup without looking too powdery and cakey. It's definitely a thicker powder. I would almost compare it to like the Huda Beauty powder. It's that thick, but it's better than the Huda Beauty in my opinion. It just sets better and it looks less powdery when you brush it away. I'm really happy with this powder. It probably will replace my Huda Beauty. I'm not gonna get rid of that one, but I do think that this one's better than that. And like I said, I already purchased a full size because I liked it that much. This is just a really good powder if you don't want like that light powder. Usually I don't use a lot of powder. I usually use my Charlotte Tilbury powder or just something very light and translucent. I really like the Hourglass powder. But when I'm really looking to set and I wanna lock my makeup in place without having it look too powdery, this is gonna be my go-to powder from now on, which is why I put it in the spot number 2. Now, if you haven't guessed what spot number 1 goes to, let's talk about it now. It's going to be the other 3 Lisa Eldridge palettes. So I have 2 of them at the bottom spot, number 9, and then 3 of them at number 1. These 3 are the 3 that I would recommend. I think they're worth the money. I think they're worth the price point. So the 3 that I have here, so I have Sorcery, which is an all shimmer palette. It looks like this. I have, which one's this? Myth, which is the purple palette, like this. And then I have Vega, which is the cool tone palette. Now I have been thinking of how I want to rank these 3 palettes in the number 1, and I'm still not sure. I still don't know. I think that I want to put Vega in at number 3, but I love all these. I mean, clearly they're all in number 1 for a reason. Vega, just because I think it's the most boring out of the 3, so that's why I'm gonna put that one at number 3. Number 2, I'm gonna put Sorcery. Now, this one was even tougher because I want to almost put this at number 1, but I don't think that I'll get the use out of it that number 1 deserves. So this one's gonna be the number 2 out of this one, and then number 1 is gonna go to Myth because I think that it's the perfect in between of Sorcery and Vega where it has staple colors, but it has special shades like the Sorcery. And I love these purples. I loved all 3 looks I came up with this. I do have individual reviews on these palettes. I also have one just overview on all 5 if you want to check that out. I will always link them up above. And yep, I think that Myth just has to be my number one. It's the most special to me. I love the mattes in here, like this one. This even just fuchsia shade. Where's this one? This blackberry shade that almost looks black, but it's just a really dark purple, was so easy to blend. I am not used to blending those blacks. I don't use a lot of black in my eyeshadow. And even though this isn't black, it's purple, it almost looks black, and it was so easy to use. I wasn't scared to use it, which is saying something because I just stay away from those really deep dark colors. And I can't say enough good things about this palette. I loved all the looks I came up with. I will be using this over and over and over again. The Vega one as well, the Sorcery is just, it's a little bit more of an event palette, and that's why like I can't give it the number one spot, but the looks I came up with this one were just amazing. This green here, stunning. This color here, this like duochrome, stunning. I mean, I'll also just insert in my swatch photos kind of sporadically throughout this of anything that I have swatch photos of, just so you can see like more official swatches. It's a little bit more helpful than just seeing it on my finger here. But these palettes, I would not sleep on them. They are pricey. If you can't afford to get them, that's totally fine. Save up and just maybe grab like a single shadow or two. Lisa Eldridge does sell all of these shades as singles, which I think is really great of her. She doesn't sell the empty components just yet. You'll have to put it in a Z palette, but definitely worth the investment of just grabbing a single shadow here and there. If you want to try the formula, make sure you like it, because the velvets can be a little bit tricky in my opinion. She definitely shines with like the luminous shades. The metallic shades are really nice. The top coat shades are really nice. So try out those specialty shades first before diving into a palette if budget's an issue, and I don't think that you're going to regret it. That is going to wrap up this video though. There are some things, there's a lot of foundations that I've been trying in the month of December. I decided instead of adding them into the ranking, I'm going to do a whole separate just foundation ranking video. So make sure your notifications are turned on so you can be notified when that video goes up. I thought it would be more helpful to just rank foundation against foundation since there are quite a few. I think I have close to 15 now. So stay tuned for that video. That'll be coming up in January. I want to just test them a little bit more. There's some combinations I want to try, go over my notes. I like to be very thorough when it comes to my reviews, but that's going to do it for today. I hope this video was helpful. Hope you're having a great December, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, everyone.